Section 62, Part 3, Chapter 3 continued, of the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, by Vicente Blasco Ibáñez, translated by Charlotte Brewster Jordan. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. As they continued their visit of investigation, they came upon a partially destroyed round tower in the highest part of the mountain. This was the most dangerous post. From it an officer was examining the enemy's line in order to gauge the correctness of the aim of the gunners. While his comrades were under the ground or hidden by the branches, he was fulfilling his mission from this visible point. A short distance from the tower, a subterranean passageway opened before their eyes. They descended through its murky recesses until they found the various rooms excavated in the ground. One side of the mountain, cut in points, formed its exterior facade. Narrow little windows cut in the stone gave light and air to these quarters. An old commandant in charge of the section came out to meet them. Desnoyers thought that he must be the floor walker of some big department store in Paris. His manners were so exquisite and his voice so suave that he seemed to be imploring pardon at every word, or addressing a group of ladies, offering them goods of the latest novelty. But this impression only lasted a moment. This soldier with gray hair and near-sighted glasses, who in the midst of war was retaining his customary manner of a building director receiving his clients, showed on moving his arms some bandages and surgical dressings within his sleeves. He was wounded in both wrists by the explosion of a shell, but he was nevertheless sticking to his post. "A devil of a honey-tongued, syrupy gentleman," mused Don Marcelo, "yet he is undoubtedly an exceptional person." By this time they had entered into the main office, a vast room which received its light through a horizontal window about 10 feet wide and only a palm and a half high, reminding one of the open space between the slats of a Venetian blind. Below it was a pine table filled with papers and surrounded by stools. When occupying one of these seats, one's eyes could sweep the entire plain. On the walls were electric apparatus, acoustic tubes and telephones, many telephones. The Commandant sorted and piled up the papers, offering the stools with drawing room punctilio. "Here, Senator Lacour." Desnoyers, humble attendant, took a seat at his side. The Commandant now appeared to be the manager of a theater preparing to exhibit an extraordinary show. He spread upon the table an enormous paper which reproduced all the features of the plain extended before them: roads, towns, fields, heights and valleys. Upon this map was a triangular group of red lines in the form of an open fan. The vertex represented the place where they were, and the broad part of the triangle was the limit of the horizon which they were sweeping with their eyes. "We are going to fire at that grove," said the artilleryman, pointing to one end of the map. "There it is," he continued, designating a little dark line. "Take your glasses." But before they could adjust the binoculars, the Commandant placed a new paper on top of the map. It was an enormous and somewhat hazy photograph upon whose plan appeared a fan of red lines like the other one. "Our aviators," explained the gunner courteously, "have taken this morning some views of the enemy's positions. This is an enlargement from our photographic laboratory. According to this information, there are 2 German regiments encamped in that wood." Don Marcelo saw on the print the spot of woods, and within it white lines which represented roads, and groups of little squares which were blocks of houses in a village. He believed that he must be in an aeroplane contemplating the earth from a height of 3,000 feet. Then he raised the glasses to his eyes, following the direction of one of the red lines, and saw enlarged in the circle of the glass a black bar, somewhat like a heavy line of ink. The grove, the refuge of the foe. "Whenever you say, Senator Lacour, we will begin," said the Commandant, reaching the topmost notch of his courtesy. "Are you ready?" Desnoyers smiled slightly. For what was his illustrious friend to make himself ready? What difference could it possibly make to a mere spectator, much interested in the novelty of the show? There sounded behind them numberless bells, gongs that called and gongs that answered. The acoustic tubes seemed to swell out with the gallop of words. The electric wire filled the silence of the room with the palpitations of its mysterious life. The bland chief was no longer occupied with his guests. They conjectured that he was behind them, his mouth at the telephone, conversing with various officials some distance off. Yet the urbane and well-spoken hero was not abandoning for one moment his candid courtesy. "Will you be kind enough to tell me when you are ready to begin?" they heard him saying to a distant officer. "I shall be much pleased to transmit the order." Don Marcelo felt a slight nervous tremor near one of his legs. It was Lecour on the qui vive over the approaching novelty. They were going to begin firing. Something was going to happen that he had never seen before. The cannons were above their heads. The roughly vaulted roof was going to tremble like the deck of a ship when they shot over it. The room with its acoustic tubes and its vibrations from the telephones was like the bridge of a vessel at the moment of clearing for action. The noise that it was going to make! A few seconds flitted by that to them seemed unusually long, and then suddenly a sound like a distant peal of thunder which appeared to come from the clouds. Desnoyers no longer felt the nervous twitter against his knee. The senator seemed surprised. His expression seemed to say, "And is that all?" The heaps of earth above them had deadened the report so that the discharge of the great machine seemed no more than the blow of a club upon a mattress. Far more impressive was the scream of the projectile, sounding at a great height, but displacing the air with such violence that its waves reached even to the window. It went flying, flying, its roar lessening. Some time passed before they noticed its effects, and the two friends began to believe that it must have been lost in space. "It will not strike! It will not strike!" they were thinking. Suddenly there surged up on the horizon, exactly in the spot indicated over the blur of the woods, a tremendous column of smoke, a whirling tower of black vapor, followed by a volcanic explosion. "How dreadful it must be to be there!" said the senator. He and Desnoyers were experiencing a sensation of animal joy, a selfish hilarity in seeing themselves in such a safe place several yards underground. Section 62